Ready to trade your grass skirt for a detective's hat? Today's deep dive takes us into the hidden histories of Hawaii. We're talking legends whispered through generations, ancient myths that might just hide real voyages, and those first mind-blowing encounters with Europeans. You sent over a stack of incredible sources, and let me tell you, history class did not prepare me for this.
What's fascinating is how these sources aren't just retelling myths. They're piecing together fragments of memory, folklore, even linguistics to uncover a past that's far more complex than most realize. It's like using whispers and shadows to reconstruct a lost city.
Okay, color me intrigued. So where do we even start unraveling this?
With the demigod, of course. Our sources plunge right into the legend of Maui, who you might know as the guy who snagged the sun-thing Polynesian Hercules, but with way better stories.
Oh yeah, Maui. He's the one who fished up the islands, right?
Mm-hmm.
Including New Zealand has some serious angling skills. But what's the deeper story here? What nugget of wisdom has been passed down about Maui?
It's not just about his strengths, but his relentless dedication to humanity. See, Maui's attempt to conquer death wasn't for himself. He literally crawled into the belly of a goddess, Hinguitipo, to steal immortality for all humankind. Think about that for a second. Talk about going above and beyond.
Hold on. He went inside a goddess to snag the secret to everlasting life. That's both terrifying and strangely inspiring. I can't imagine that worked out well for him.
Well, no, not exactly. But it speaks to this core Polynesian belief. Even demigods make sacrifices for their people, even if it means facing impossible odds. Maui's story isn't just fantastical, it's a reflection of cultural values.
Okay, I'm getting chills. So we've got demigods, death-defying quests. What's next in this historical treasure chest?
Get ready for a potential plot twist, because the source hints at something truly unexpected, possible Viking voyages to Hawaii.
Wait, Vikings in Hawaii?
Yeah.
I thought they just like to hang out with polar bears and raid monasteries. That's a really long voyage.
Exactly. It sounds wild, but there are intriguing clues hidden within Hawaiian lore. We're talking shared motifs between Polynesian and Norse mythology, like the emphasis on seafaring, shape-shifting tricksters. Even the name Hilo, a familiar spot to you, I'm sure has potential links to a legendary Viking figure, Wiro.
Hold up. The Hilo I snorkeled in last year. You're telling me that could have a Viking connection? My mind is officially blown. But let's be real. How much evidence is there for this? Was this just one dude on a rogue wave?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There's no buried Viking ship that we know of. But it's not outside the realm of possibility. These were incredible navigators, and the Pacific is a big place. Who knows what those voyages really entailed? The sources encourage us to at least consider it.
Okay, you've convinced me I'm putting Viking helmets in Hawaii on my historical bingo card. Now, before I get lost in a Google spiral, let's talk about another intriguing character from the source material. Akeli. He's on a quest for the water of life, but this isn't your average fairy tale, is it?
Not at all. What sets Akeli apart is his motivation. This isn't some thirst for power or immortality. He's driven by the heartbreaking loss of his brothers at sea. Imagine the grief, the determination to defy even death itself to reunite his family.
That's not just a quest. That's like some next-level devotion. But we're talking about reviving the dead here. This guy must have some serious magic on his side. Does he pull a Maui and raid a god's pantry for a magic potion?
Well, he does have some tricks up his sleeve. The source describes a magic cloak and a treasure-filled bamboo staff gifts from a grateful dragon he encounters along the way. But what really stands out is Akeli's cleverness. He actually manages to snag food from the moon to sustain him on his journey.
He stole snacks from the moon. Okay, that's a new one.
Yeah.
It's both hilarious and kind of genius. What does that tell us about how ancient Hawaiians viewed their heroes?
It speaks to this beautiful blend of the supernatural and the resourceful that permeates Polynesian mythology. Akile may have divine help, but he also relies on his wit and his cunning. These aren't just untouchable gods. They're figures who use both strength and smarts to overcome obstacles.
So we've got demigods, potential Vikings, moon snacks. Polynesian mythology is officially wilder than anything I learned in school. But these sources you sent, they also touch on some figures who walk the line between legend and historical record.
That's right. And one figure who embodies that perfectly is Paua, a high priest who arrives from Samoa and changes the course of Hawaiian history. Imagine this, a priest fleeing turmoil, guided by giant fish, using celestial navigation to reach Hawaii and establish a dynasty.
Okay, giant fish acting as navigators. Now, I know those Polynesian sea shanties weren't just messing around. But seriously, how much of this is myth? How much is history?
It's a bit of both, woven together. The source emphasizes how Paua cleverly used the the existing reverence for genealogy to his advantage. He installs a new king, Pili, but ensures he's the power behind the throne. It's a classic tale of political maneuvering, even in ancient Hawaii.
A savvy political strategist, Aindy, he's got giant fish on speed dial. This Pao was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. But what's the lasting impact here? Did he just usher in a new line of rulers, or did things really change?
Pao's arrival wasn't just about bloodlines. He also brought with him new religious practices, social structures. Think of it as a cultural reboot, laying the groundwork for a more centralized and hierarchical system in Hawaii.
A cultural reboot. I like that. So Pao sets the stage. But what about the rulers who follow in his footsteps?
Well, that brings us to King Moikeha, a ruler who embodies this spirit of exploration and expansion. Unlike Pao, who flees turmoil, Moikeha sets sail seeking connections, knowledge. His voyages take him all the way to Tahiti.
Tahiti. We're talking long-distance voyaging here. Was this a diplomatic mission, a Polynesian trading empire in the making, or just a king who needed to change the scenery?
The sources point to a deep cultural exchange, solidifying links between these distant islands. Imagine the stories, the technologies, the traditions brought back from those voyages. In fact, the source mentions a chant celebrating Moikeha's return, detailing his exploits and solidifying his legacy.
See, this is what I love. Forget dusty history books. Give me good sea shanty, an epic poem, a story passed down for generations. It brings the past alive in a whole new way.
Absolutely. These oral histories remind us that history isn't just dates and battles, it's the stories we tell about ourselves, the values we choose to preserve.
And sometimes those stories hint at encounters that completely upend our understanding of the past. We talked about potential Vikings earlier, but these sources also mention other pre-Cook contact, right?
Exactly. Long before Captain Cook's arrival, the Hawaiians encountered others who braved that vast Pacific. We're talking shipwrecked sailors washing ashore, whispers of white chiefs appearing from distant lands. There are even tales of objects that seemed utterly alien at the time.
Okay, now this is where my inner history nerd gets really excited. Give me details. What kind of objects are we talking about? Did someone leave a message in a bottle?
Think more along the lines of a wonderful iron knife described in the source material, wielded by a foreign king. Imagine the impact of such an object in a culture where tools were primarily made of stone and wood.
An iron knife. That's not just a curiosity. That's a technological marvel. I bet that caused quite a stir. Did it change how they viewed these outsiders?
It certainly raises questions. Who were these early visitors? What technologies did they possess? And how did their presence, even fleetingly, influence Hawaiian society? These are puzzles historians are still trying to piece together.
So we've gone from demigods and Vikings to mysterious iron knives. Talk about a crash course in pre-Cook Hawaii. But of course, the arrival of Captain Cook in 1778, that's a turning point you can't ignore, right?
It's a moment where myth and history collide in a way that's both fascinating and tragic. Imagine you're Hawaiian living with these stories of gods and heroes, and suddenly these massive ships appear on the horizon. Technologies beyond your comprehension, men speak in strange languages. It's easy to see how the lines between reality and legend might blur.
Yeah, you'd probably think the gods themselves were paying a visit, especially with those epic European sailing vessels. Didn't they think Cook was Lono, the god of fertility and peace?
Exactly. The sources describe how Cook's arrival coincided with the annual Makahiki festival, a celebration in Lono's honor. The timing, the gifts Cook brought, even his route along the islands, it all seemed to align with their prophecies.
Talk about a cultural misunderstanding waiting to happen. So when did the godlike illusion fade? Was it a slow realization or like a sudden wake-up call?
It was a series of events, but the death of a Hawaiian chief at the hands of Cook's men, that's when the cracks really start to show. The source quotes a chiefess who cries out, "This is a man and not a god," as she witnesses this violence. Imagine the shock, the disillusionment as the divine veil is lifted.
That one quote, it like sends chills down my spine. It's like the moment Hawaii realizes the world is much bigger and much more dangerous than they thought.
Yeah. It's a stark reminder of the power dynamics at play. Cook's arrival wasn't just about cultural exchange. It ushered in an era of exploitation, disease, and ultimately the loss of Hawaiian independence.
It's heavy stuff, but so important to acknowledge, right? We can't romanticize the past, especially when those romanticized narratives have often been used to erase the real costs of colonialism.
Precisely. And yet, even amidst this upheaval, we see stories of resilience, adaptation, even the seeds of social change. One figure who embodies this is King Kamehameha, a ruler who understood that the old ways were being
Oh
challenged.
yeah, Kamehameha. He's the one who unified the islands, right? More of a warrior king, if I remember my history correctly.
He was a skilled strategist and warrior, but these sources highlight another side of him, his sense of justice. There's a story, The Law of the Splintered Paddle, that really captures this.
Okay, intriguing title. Give me the story.
So before he became king, Kamehameha was fleeing a battle and was attacked by fishermen who mistook him for an enemy. He managed to escape, but during the struggle, his paddle was broken. Years later, when he's king, he remembers this injustice and establishes a law. No one, especially the vulnerable, the elderly, women, children, should fear being harmed while traveling.
Wow, he turned a personal experience of vulnerability into a law protecting others. That's not just a warrior king, that's a leader with empathy.
Exactly. And it speaks to this idea that Hawaiian society, even while facing unprecedented challenges, was still capable of change, of evolving its laws to protect its people.
Which brings us to one of the biggest shifts of all, right? The changing attitudes toward the kapu system. It's a term I've heard before, but honestly, I need a little refresher course. What was the kapu system, and how did Cook's arrival impact it?
Think of the kapu as a system of sacred laws that governed every aspect of Hawaiian life, from what you ate to how you interacted with chiefs and the gods. It was incredibly complex, with strict punishments for violations, and it maintained social order for centuries.
So how did these iron knives and European ships disrupt a system that's been around for centuries?
It's not an overnight change, but a gradual unraveling. The sources point to Queen Kahumanu, one of the most powerful figures in Hawaiian history, overhearing commoners questioning the kapu.
Wait, openly questioning these sacred laws. That's incredibly bold. What sparked that kind of defiance?
It's the culmination of everything we've discussed. The arrival of foreigners challenges those long-held beliefs. The death of Cook exposes the vulnerability of the gods, and figures like Kamehameha demonstrate that laws can adapt. The seeds of doubt had been sown.
It's a reminder that cultures aren't static. They're constantly being reshaped by internal and external forces. So what does this all mean? What's the big takeaway from our deep dive into Hawaii's hidden histories?
For me, it highlights the importance of seeking out those hidden stories, the ones often overlooked in traditional historical narratives. We've seen how myth and history intertwine, how ancient traditions can be challenged and reshaped, and how even in the face of immense change, the human spirit finds ways to adapt and endure.
It's a reminder that history is never truly hidden if you know where to look, and that sometimes the most fascinating discoveries are waiting just beneath the surface in a whisper, a chant, a legend passed down through generations. So the next time you hear a story from a far-off place, pay attention. There might just be a hidden history waiting to be uncovered.